Thank you, everyone. My name is Fred Lasky, and I'm the Executive Director of the MWRA, and I appreciate you coming out here tonight. And what I'd like to do is first introduce a number of folks before we get going, and I apologize in advance if I'm going to miss some names, but we have Council President Ron Vecchia is here. We have Councilor LeConte here. We have Councilor Lettieri here, James Lettieri. Are there any other councilors here? Okay, thank you. Heather England. Sorry, I apologize, I'm from Medford. And we have Tino Capabianca from the school committee is here this evening. Thank you for coming. It should be an educational night. And Peter Christopher, I'm told, is in the building as well. Peter, thank you for coming tonight. We have number of other, we have from Speaker DeLeo's office, his Chief of Staff, Seth. And from Senator Boncouri's office, we have Kathy representing the senator. They both send their apologies, but they had long-standing commitments at other locations, and we're not able to make it tonight. We have a bunch of folks from different organizations here tonight so that we can answer any questions that you may have without having to say we'll have to get back to you. We have a whole contingent from the marine fisheries, the folks who obviously are here to talk about the fish pier. We have Daniel McKernan, who is the Deputy Director, sitting down front here. We have Mike Armstrong, who is the Recreational Program Manager, and Russ Kessel, who is the Public Access Coordinator. So thank you gentlemen, for coming out this evening. On the law enforcement side, we obviously have Chief Flanagan and Chief Delahunty here this evening. We have the Arthur O'Connell from the Environmental Police is here this evening, as is Trooper Mastro Maida. I told you I was going to mess it up, and I apologize for that. And we have a bunch of staff from the MWRA here as well. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a twice a year, a biannual meeting that we usually hold out at Deer Island to bring an update to the community on what has happened at Deer Island during the past 6 months, and also to hear back from the neighbors and the Winthrop residents who come. So what I'd like to do is take about 5 minutes and give you our update on what's happened. That'll obviously lead us to the fish pier, which I assume most of you folks are here to talk about rather than the wind turbine. We'll run through this very quickly. If you have questions, we can answer it, but we do like to provide an update to the community on what is going on. Obviously, the storms this winter and even into the spring had a very important impact on us and on Winthrop as a community. The plant was isolated at times. We provided great assistance to the town of Winthrop during those storms. And we went back and calculated that we spent about 170 hours with our staff and heavy equipment helping keep the roads open, Shirley, Taft, Elliott, and others down that way, keep the main thoroughfares open. And then when we had the unusual flooding that came through the backside of town that no one expected, one of the things MWRA can do is we can pump water. And we brought our big pumps down and pumped out numerous cellars to get the water out of the cellars that had flooded in certain areas of the town. The island itself did okay. We lost a tree. You can see the strength of the waves that blew those blocks around on the ocean side. And this is a picture in the heat of the storm with the seawalls being attacked with the heavy sea that was coming in during those nor'easters. And it really is a blessing. A lot of talk now about sea rise and climate change, and one of the things that is very important to us at the authority is that Deer Island was built to withstand the biggest of the big storms, and it really showed it this winter. And we hope that these are isolated incidents and not part of a trend, but it sure feels like we're in the middle of a trend that's been predicted with massive sea rise and heavy storms. Projects, another thing we usually do is give the folks an update on the projects on Deer Island. Many of you probably have noticed that the Lollipop wind turbine came down. That was an experimental project that was funded by venture capitalists and also some state funding to come up with a more efficient wind turbine. And unfortunately, it never really took off. The company, the idea was that they would put up free of charge this prototype, and then when they went into production, we would get the first production model. And what happened is when they went into production, they made modifications, and unfortunately the first one, the head fell off and the whole place went bankrupt, and we had to take it down because it started to pose a safety hazard. We also in May had, you may recall, I believe it was a Saturday night, We had a squall come through, a storm come through at 50, 60-mile-an-hour gusts out of nowhere, and it knocked one of the two turbines, the hydraulics of the turbine, off, and we're still in the process of repairing that turbine, which should be up and running fairly soon, but it was a major hit. That thing turns into the wind and the blades, and it just got caught flat by that extra fast wind. We'll be painting the water tank that sticks up that you see from the town next spring, so a major upgrade to that so it looks better. This is the gravity thickeners. We had one of those damage our fiberglass covers, and then the insides were greatly corroded. So you've seen work there. If you walk that side of the island, you've seen that work. That will continue as all of these are rehabilitated and move forward with the construction. Community partnerships, just another update. We are good neighbors. We try to help out the nonprofits and the others by using the island and the open space park as a spot for these organizations to have fundraisers. Unlike most other organizations, though, we don't charge anyone. We don't make them pay for custodians. We don't make them pay for security. We don't have a fee that's required. We do the cleanup, and we help them out, and we've got great positive feedback from a number of these major or very important charities that occur out this way. Obviously, the Sail Boston thing was a great partnership with the town. Around 2,000 Winthrop residents were able to come up and get great views. We thought it was a lost day early on with the bad kind of clouds and fog, but it cleared off just in time for the parade of sails to come through. And I would just compliment the folks in Winthrop who participated in it. A great example of no one left litter. There were no issues at all. It worked really, really great. One of the things that a lot of folks don't realize is we have a long-term agreement with the town of Winthrop, a mitigation agreement, and this year, through the inflation, that amount will go up to $800,000 that we will make in a direct payment to the community of Winthrop. If we were a taxpayer, we would be the highest taxpayer by a factor of 4. So that payment, and if you go back to the beginning, we have made a total of $50 million worth of payments to the town of Winthrop in the existence of the MWRA and during the construction. So we feel that we have a very generous mitigation program with the town, and we continue to honor that. Now, we're all here, most of you are here to talk about the fish pier. I understand that. And what I want to convey to you is we take pride in trying to be a good neighbor. Obviously, it's a heavy industrial plant. There are trucks that come in and out. There are issues that we try to resolve. And many of the headaches that we hear from the community members are headaches to us as well. And we try to deal with them. And we have tried to be very responsive to the folks who have questions and concerns about various aspects of the fishing pier. And I hope what you'll find tonight as I walk through this PowerPoint is that we have been responsive and we have listened to the concerns of the neighbors, particularly out near the gut. What is this all about? It's a fishing pier that is funded by the saltwater fishing licenses. If you recall, several years back, a number of years back, a saltwater fishing license program was instituted, and the idea was to take those funds and to increase the public's access to fishing on the salt water. And it's been very successful. And I have to point out that there are 400, as of last year, and it's grown every year, so I assume there are more now, 477 Winthrop residents purchased saltwater fishing licenses last year. There was another group that described themselves as non-residents, but also used Winthrop as the address that they would be located. And so that brings the number almost to 500 Winthrop residents currently hold saltwater fishing licenses. So there's been a big investment by those fishermen in this licensing program. So the idea is for the saltwater fishing license to pay for public access. And one of the ways they do that is by building piers. And this is an example of a pier that they built down in one of the islands, I believe, Oaks Bluffs. And the only difference with this pier and the one that we're doing out at Deer Island is that this is an L, and you can see to the right that it is a T. So the one at the island will be out, and then it'll mushroom to the left and to the right. And there will be, as part of that, a a parking lot hid right in behind the knoll here. This is a hill right here, and we'll tuck it in there, and it'll be within close proximity, and all of this will be handicapped accessible. And that's part of the deal, is to create an environment where folks who have handicaps can get out and fish, and some people who frankly may have baby carriages, or may frankly just you have a cane or need assistance walking, will also have the ability to get out and enjoy the water. We're calling it a fishing pier. Obviously the experience is a lot of folks just go out there and sit, a lot of people go out there and have lunch, some people go out and fly kites, and so there's a whole bunch of positive activities that will occur there. And it is important. One of the questions I think that will probably be asked is, well, why that location? And the short answer is because that's where the fish are, and it's accessible by the bus, and it's close to Boston, and to a whole bunch of folks in Winthrop and Revere and other communities who fish very heavily. I don't know, you want to talk a little bit more about that, or how this was, the fishing, and I'll take it. Let me do it. No, go ahead.
I'm happy to.
Sure, thank you.
First of all, thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm with Ross Kessler once again from the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries. When I first took on the role of Public Access Coordinator, I traveled the entire coastline of Massachusetts, and this is one place that jumped out at me as it looked like it had a lot of potential. I talked to fishing experts around this area. They find it's a great fishing location. I then went to our area biologists who also vetted it, and I went to store owners. I mean, one's here tonight. I saw Pete Santini. He's a fan of this area, and I then approached MWRA, and that's when this whole process started. So this is a fishy area. It's a public place that's gorgeous. I mean, that's why you all who live here. I mean, it's a fabulous place to be, and that's really about it. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So this is a comparable. MWRA also has the Nut Island Headworks over in Quincy, and you can see on the left the pier there. We run a very successful pier there. It is very popular with the fishermen, obviously, but also just a whole bunch of people go out there and enjoy the open space and enjoy the fishing. We clean it, we maintain it, we keep the trash cleaned, and we provide appropriate public safety protection to it to make sure that it's safe and that it's quiet and it's not abused. So we have experience running a fish pier. One of the issues, and I'm going to go through some of the issues that have been raised, we're trying to be responsive to the issues that have been raised. One of the issues was that there was no public notice. And I would argue that we made a good faith effort to have public notice. In the fall of 2014, when the project was simply an idea, we had one of these meetings. The room was pretty full, and we asked what people thought, and it was the consensus of the room at that time that the fish pier should go forward. So we moved forward, and we kept up to date every 6 months with these meetings where we were in the process and where it was going. One of the complaints was, well, you didn't buy the ad in the right paper. Well, they bought the ad in the public notice in the Boston Globe. And we reminded the residents that were there at our May 16th meeting that the public hearing was coming, and we urged them to either testify or to comment in writing on the project. And no one attended the hearing, nor there was no written comments made on it. However, we feel that we notified folks that it was coming, and so we thought that we did a good faith job there. One of the issues that comes up, Sure, anytime, if anyone has a question.
Mailings or anything to the abutters for the residents of Point Shirley about these meetings? If you have a neighbor that's going to have additions put on their house,
Yeah.
anything, you get something in the mail, a notification. Was there any notification to Point Shirley residents?
No, other than the invitation to the meetings. By the way, I should have pointed out, we're on the cable, Winthrop cable, and if you want your question to be heard over the cable, I guess you need the microphone. I can kind of summarize your question if you'd like.
When you have mailings out to
Sure, the the question was, what kind of notices went out to the neighbors, the residents? Were there mailings or other kinds of notifications?
During the permitting process, all legal abutters is a certain distance from the property that need to be notified, just like if you were to put up a garage at your property or anything else like that, they were notified.
So the answer is no, because
You are not then within the legal distance of a bus, and I don't know what it is off the top of my hands.
So the answer is no, we did not mail to every resident along the route, along Taft Avenue and all those streets. No, we didn't.
second, was the town, any of the town council members or any of those people, were they notified? Are you aware if they were notified, or our MWRA representative?
I don't know. I know that several of them attend the meetings regularly where it was discussed. And I don't have the attendance sheets as we sit here, but there have been, some of the people faithfully come out, and even if they have 2 or 3 things that night, they come out, make an appearance, and move on. So, as I said, I know several of them were at some of these meetings. Like I say, every 6 months when we had the meeting, this was one of the big items on the agenda to discuss the progress and the timing and all that stuff. All right. Another issue that comes up is the crime on Deer Island. And there's a whole bunch of ways you can look at this, and this may be difficult to look at from the distance you're at, but we can make hard copies available. But the Winthrop police put together a combination of the Winthrop and state police logs for Deer Island public access. And over those 4 years, there were 136 calls that came in about something going on the island. And most of them were having to do with minor incidents. Someone was missing, someone was locked out of their car, minor type parking issues, someone was blocked in, a minor accident. There were no arrests, there were no major incidents, and there were no major issues. Most of them were considered minor issues that were resolved right there at the island.
Where's the FBI crime about with the MS-13? Because you said that's an alleged crime. That is not an alleged crime. It's in the FBI records.
Right.
And I don't see that up there. Because
Well,
I consider
okay.
hiding murder weapons to be a major crime.
Yes, thank you. The FBI, we were notified by the FBI and the Boston State Police during that investigation. That crime did not take place on the Deer Island. Crime took place in Boston. So therefore, all the charges in relation to that crime would be processed through the Boston Police Department.
Well, wasn't the crime, the beat-in, a crime? When they beat
That was all part of a task force collaboration. So actually, it all went through the federal government because it was in federal court. Boston had task force members, the state police. We were informed of them watching and who they were watching and when they were watching them. So a lot of, if you go back into the papers, a lot of them traveled into Lynn. They were stopped in Lynn and arrested in Lynn and brought back to the federal courthouse in Boston. So.
Mike, the point of my comment is that.
Hi, I'm Dawn from Precinct 3. The point of my comment is that Fred Lasky said in the newspaper that these crimes were alleged, and they are not alleged. But I can feel comfortable to say there's probably other alleged crimes from the gang members that we don't know about. And I requested the state police crime log for a certain period of time last year, and when I got it, it had been scrubbed down. So all the details were removed. So we don't know what the definition of these crimes are and how you classify them. If I go on the town of Winthrop's website, I can see your crime log, and it's transparent, but the state police crime log is not.
Hi, my name is Dan Alicia. I live down in Point Shirley, and I'm on the beach side, close to Deer Island. In the middle of the night, 5 or 6 years ago, all I heard was music, partying, drinking. You could hear bottles breaking. I'd call the Winthrop police, no offense. Oh, that's not our property. We have nothing to do with it. I'd call them 3 or 4 times. We don't do that. But maybe if we have a car that's available, maybe we'll send it down. They never showed up. Finally figured, they said that the Boston police is responsible as Boston property. So I called the Boston police. The Boston police never responded. Call them again. It's way out of their way. They don't want to bother with Winthrop or Deer Island. So I says, then I heard that the state police would be the ones to call. I went down to the Revere Barracks, and I spoke with one of the troopers that were down there. Thank you very much, not you, but one of your colleagues. And he says, I'll take care of it the same way I took care of it on Revere Beach. He says, we got rid of MS-13 down there by telling them the park is closed, Revere Beach is closed, and they have to get off at 10 o'clock or we're going to tow the cars. I'll tell them the same thing. They went down there on a Friday night when they start their partying, and you can hear this all over Point Shirley, all this noise, and the radios are blasting. He went down there on a Friday night, he made his announcement, all the cars left. He went down there on a Saturday night, all the cars left. He went down there the next Friday, he got them all out of there again, they never showed up again. That's because he told them it was closed at 10 o'clock and the park is closed. Now, this park is going to be open 24 hours a day. How are you going to threaten the people to stop the noise, stop the partying, and get MS-13 out of there if you can't threaten them with towing their cars? Because now they're legally parked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What's going to be going on with that? And what are you going to do with loud radio music? Because it's not just radio. They get stereos in their cars and their huge stereo boxes blasting all over the place. And it is MS-13. Now, a representative of the state police down Revere, bring it back. Thank you very much. He was terrific. He was really, really good. And I forgot his name. I wish I kept his name. Thank you.
So let's start off with jurisdiction,
Yeah.
because jurisdiction is a tricky conundrum of an issue for us. In the middle of the causeway, we have a marking that ends the Winthrop line. So everything north of that marking would be Winthrop jurisdiction. Everything south of that marking, from that marking to the pillars, would be the street of Boston, because it's on a DCR roadway. So that would be the city of Boston jurisdiction, and inside the plant itself and also the parking lot is state police jurisdiction as determined by Superior Court decision a couple of years ago. There was a body that washed up on Deer Island. We went to court and found out who had primary, who has secondary, and who has no jurisdiction. So the current status of our orders of the Winthrop Police Department that the Deputy Chief has put out, that we will respond, and we will hold the crime scene or the scene for the state police, or if it's just getting rid of the cars, just get rid of them. We are working with the state police and the environmental police on a multi-jurisdictional MOU, a memorandum of understanding, urged by the council president and the councilor from that precinct. So we're working on that, but that's going up the chain. So we have a verbal agreement as of right now. You have seen the enforcement increase down there. The environmental police were down there the other night. They were checking all the fishing license, all of that stuff to make sure everyone's legally licensed to fish there. And the state police have also been down there over the last week. We are trying to put a member of each jurisdiction together at least once a week. So we have a three-person task force that can go down there and go through the place and make sure everyone's licensed, everyone has the proper registrations, the licenses to fish. So that's really our focus in the past couple of weeks here, has been trying to get those MOUs straightened out. We need a memorandum of understanding under Chapter 4198 in order to go into another jurisdiction. And that's considered another jurisdiction. Right now, you can call the Winthrop Police, and they'll respond, and they'll have a state police cruiser on their way. You can call the state police barracks. Yeah, you can call the Revere State Police. If they're tied up, they're going to call the Winthrop Police and say, can you handle that? But that gives us automatic jurisdiction to go in. Once your OIC from one station calls another OIC from another station and says, we need help in our jurisdiction, that gives us the authority to go in that jurisdiction. Well, we have security down there 24 hours a day. And also, well, I can only tell you what they're paying for. Fred, do you want to address the security?
Well, we hire a private security firm that mans the gates, and twice a shift, every shift, they make a loop down through, and they also have direct cameras. I'll show you some cameras further into the precinct. No, we've had these cameras. They go down to the gate and come back around.
Interior to the park.
No, no, they come outside the gate twice, they come outside the gate twice a shift.
The Deer Island security came around, there were people drinking, throwing bottles, yelling and screaming. I was walking my dog, I said, aren't you gonna do anything? He drove away and went back into the island. The next morning, I was walking my dog on the leash at 5:30 a.m. and he pulls up next to me and says the park is closed. I'm walking my dog, no drinking, no faking bottles, and he didn't do a damn thing when the people were out there drinking and throwing bottles. He drove away like a coward.
Well, his, sorry, oh, sorry. Sorry, Kathy. Go ahead, Kathy. Whoever. Kathy's been waiting very patiently.
I'm sorry, I'm a little scattered here, but I think one of the things I wasn't going to talk about, but really got me, was the mitigation money that the town of Winthrop is receiving. The town of Winthrop, and I think it was in the 80s, the mitigation money we received was well-earned, well-due for having the treatment center in our town. Yes, it's technically the city of Boston, but the fact is, it's in Winthrop. So the trucks coming through our town, the repair, maintenance that are on our roads, our police and fire that have to respond to things, we are due that mitigation money. So for some reason to think that Winthrop's getting some free money that they shouldn't get is absurd. And
First off, Kathy, I never said that.
no, there was you made a broad statement about the mitigation money. And I didn't say you said it specifically. I'm speaking in general. Because I know from reading the Board of Directors minutes over the past year, there has been issues in why should Winthrop and Quincy get mitigation money. And that's just public document. But to talk about the MOUs, because that's the most important thing that we can all talk about. So in regard to that, our MOU from when Deer Island and the treatment center was built to where it is now, the MOU went from about 40, 50 pages to 2. Understandably, in certain respects, because that was the construction phase. And there were certain things that had to be part of that. I think what people, and again, I don't live on the Point anymore, but I grew up there and it's part of my soul. When I read an MOU that states, and let me go there because I like to deal with facts, that talks about the authority in the fisheries controlling something, yet in the same sentence not being responsible for it, who's responsible? The amended MOU is very clear in taking no responsibility and releasing liability for each party. So people's concerns are, who's responsible? I'm a sister of again, I'll say cop, no disrespect. A sister of a cop met the lovely state trooper walking in. We need to know who's responsible. Who's responsible for speeding cars? Who's responsible for criminal activity, whether it's the City of Boston records versus Winthrop records that's happening? When I'm looking at this MOU, it's stated in here. It says yes, we're going to try to be careful about trash pickup, and we're going to try to be careful about security, and we're going to try to be careful about this and that. And then in another paragraph, it absolutely says, and again, I can provide this to people, the MWRA says in here, we're going to provide no day-to-day monitoring of this. So people are concerned. I think the issue is, to an extent, people don't have confidence. And I'll also say that's gonna, and I've said it to Fred before, I will say this about the authority. The authority has made this fishing pier abundantly clear, abundantly public knowledge since, what, 2015, I think? Approximately. This has been clear. So as much as, you know, I want to talk to Fred about certain things and that we need to like button up certain things, we also need to look to our council at that time, and some of them are not on the council at this time. And thank God we got someone, what is his name, Nick LeConte, that's, you know, getting in there and doing his dues. But this is not something that's new, people. So as much as we want to get irritated with the authority, we also have to look to our town government. Sorry. They've known about it. This is nothing new. This has been out there. This has been out there. But I will say, Fred, because I was at those meetings, you had said, and I can't say verbatim, but you had said at the beginning of your speech that something about the town like was up for this, wanted it. There was a bunch of people at that meeting, and you said, I can't say verbatim, if you don't want it, it will not come. Absolutely. You stated that. And again, but I also know to an extent, Fred, with federal funding and different things, I don't know how much of that's in your control. But I just have to say, as much as I respect you, you did say that people, and I wish there was more voluminous people that have gotten involved, but they don't, for whatever reasons. But I'm Peg Riley's daughter, so I get involved. People were against it. People did issue concerns. So to say that people didn't have concerns, we asked for the state police, again, you guys weren't there, we asked through a meeting for the state police to be invited to the meetings, again, to find out, like Chief Delahanty said, there's confusion about kind of who's in control, if you will. But there was public outcry for it. This was something that people did absolutely say they were concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, let me. Another question? Oh, down here, sure.
If you want to respond, I'll let you respond.
I don't know. I'm not sure how to respond. Let me just say this. No, because I'm sorry?
When all else fails, the truth works.
You said it many times, Fred, and the reason...
I didn't say it many times, John. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of people have told me they want the fish pier. Okay? So, I'm sorry? Right, and if you, let me get down into this a little bit, and then we can come back to it. We have worked tirelessly to try to address the questions of safety, and one of the things that you'll find is that maybe for the first time, we've forged an agreement with the Winthrop police and the state police and the environmental police on who has jurisdiction and how people are going to get down there. But let me run through this, and then we can come back. One of the things I hear about is the trash. We can pick trash up as often as we need to. Let me just say that. We think we have a good system now. We have 14 barrels out there. If we need 28 barrels, we'll get 28 barrels. We pick it up 6 days a week, and because we pick it up in the morning of the 7th day, and we have the maintenance records of every time the staff go out and do it. So, and then one of the things that is reported is that there are campfires down there. Well, we have one report of a campfire in 2015, and it appears, frankly, that The other campfires that are along the shore are outside of our facility, or our boundaries. So that there are some folks that go down there and light small fires and fish, but it's our understanding is it's outside of MWRA's jurisdiction. The meadow destruction, I fully understand that. We believe it's a very modest little section off of the road. It's in behind the knoll, so it'll get the cars off of Taft's Avenue. It'll get the cars pushed up farther away from the houses. We thought this was a good thing. In fact, we had offered to double the number of spaces to get more cars off so that you don't have people in front of your houses parking and slamming the doors. But again, we're backed off. We'll go with the 20 spaces. It's around 7,000 square feet in a 60-acre open space. So we think it's minimal impact, and in fact would actually be better because it'll hide the cars in behind the knoll. The current pier that's there is a beat-up old industrial pier that's unsafe and unfit for fishing. It also would break, to allow cars inside the perimeter of the plant, would break every rule of thumb or every guidance you get from the wastewater industry across the country, that you can't have the public riding around inside a wastewater treatment plant. So we don't even consider that a viable option. We understand why people may think it is, but it's a lot more technical and more difficult than even I realized initially when the idea was brought up. Again, no one checks the fishing licenses. We've heard that. The environmental police, and there's a representative here tonight that can talk about it, have been doing the spark checks. We had a meeting that I'll show you with Council President Vecchia, in which he laid down the law about what he expected and what the town expected in going forward for the island. They have gone out. They want to store a gator on the facility so that they can come out and ride along the pathways and check the licenses. They went out the other night. They had almost 100% compliance with the saltwater fishing requirements as they went around and checked everyone who was fishing. And they've been out, I think, 3 times, and will continue to do so on a regular basis. There'll be a schedule worked out, as Chief Delahunty said, to make sure that people are there. If they're not there, we'll find out why they're not there and move forward. We are going... Yes, Dawn?
Where's the picture of the other sign, the one that says, "Public access closes dusk to dawn"?
I don't know. It's the next one over, Dawn. It's there. It says it right there, dawn to dusk.
Well, there's another, well, so...
Right. It says it to the...
24 hours.
All right.
How's it going to be open 24 hours if your sign clearly states dusk to dawn, and you're going to have pier open 24 hours? How does that work?
It works in that it gives us the authority to close it down if we want. Let me finish, and then we'll come back to this, Dawn. We've been around the...
If you want, you have a
Right.
sign
Right.
that states it closes dusk to dawn.
Right.
Now you're going to say, but we're going to open it 24 hours. So are you going to pick one way or another? Because we've lived by your rules all these years. And now you want to change the rules for some people or other. I don't need the microphone. So you decide which way you're going to go. Because we know which way the law and the rules go, but you can't seem to make up your mind. And if you want, I will give you pictures of 3 years ago that clearly state on several of my Facebook posts that we were totally against the pier, with plenty of pictures of all the trash that say, if you can't maintain what you have right now, why are you shoving something else we don't want down our throats? You don't take care of it when it's open dusk to dawn 3 years ago, and now 24 hours. So what's it going to be? I'm looking for the sign.
There's a... Not to step on your toes, Fred, there is a certain provisions in the old common laws that are still current today, and they're posted on the Attorney General's website for fishing, fowling, and bathing. And you cannot restrict public access piers on certain times. So I would imagine Mr. Lasky would have to comply with those common laws that are posted on the Attorney General's website to allow fishing, just as we do now. I walk down there at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night with Chief Flanagan, and they're fishing at the back, and there's nothing we can do to say get out. You can restrict for walking, you can restrict for everything else, but when it comes to fishing, we had the same problem on Court Road, to be honest with you, people fishing behind people's houses. And between the low water mark and the high water mark, they were allowed to do it. And we were restricted on enforcement behind all those houses. So I just wanted, before we give an answer, I just want to make sure it's a legal answer that we give you, and something that you can, and something that's tangible and something that's legal, so you can have it in writing. Guessing here tonight is not going to make you happier tomorrow. It's just going to say, you didn't know what you're talking about, so let's find out and let's get back to you.
The colonial law, yes, you can go down the beach and fish, but to park your car at Deer Island, then you're opening up. Other parks, they close the gates. Down in World's End, they close the gate. National parks, they close the gate.
I understand your concern. My problem is this. They're just going to park on Taft Ave, Maryland, Townsend, and then they're going to become my problem, and they're going to bike their cars in. They're going to bike right in. And to say they do that now, they might be doing it on occasion, but I can tell you right now, I see them get out of their car, get on bicycles, and bike around from the parking lot. So I'm down there a lot. I understand I don't live down there, but I'm down there a lot.
Hey, let me just say this, and what I've said this before at meetings when this issue has come up. We learned the hard way at Nut Island in Quincy what happens. The neighbors wanted the gate closed at 11 o'clock or dusk to keep the fishermen out, okay? Very quickly, what they found is the fishermen are going to come. They were going to follow the tides. Depending on when the tides are, that's when they're going to be there. And immediately what happened is that all those fishermen started parking back up into the neighborhoods. So you put a couple of no parking signs, they go a little farther. They'll walk 3 miles to get to a good fishing place. So now all of a sudden the complaints come in, hey, wait a minute, I've got all these fishermen unloading their trunks, they're throwing stuff in the back of their pickup trucks, and so you please open the gate again and let them in and let them go park way down the end of Nut Island so we don't have to hear the cars doors opening and the trunks opening and closing. So we found through experience that the neighbors around Nut Island wanted it open because it would get the cars out from in front of their houses. And I will guarantee you, like the chief said, we closed that gate. There's a whole bunch of logistic to it, by the way, because where is the bus going to turn around if we have to close the gate to that parking lot? No one ever thought of that. But anyway, we closed that gate, I guarantee you, another whole group of people are going to be down here yelling and screaming because all these cars are parked in front of their houses. So that's why we say leave it open, let them quietly come in and park the cars and go down the island and fish. You know, that's where our thinking is.
Hi, I'd like to read my little spiel I had. I was hoping to kick it off for the citizens' point of view as a Precinct 3 resident. So to the MWRA and specifically Mr. Fred Lasky, it is hard to decide which elements of this project and the process that are most offensive, but I can start with a few. The permitting and design process excluded Winthrop residents, and it's insulting. So Ross was correct that the process was followed because it's on Boston property. So the reason why this room is full is because somebody in the precinct spent $500 out of his own pocket to send out postcards and alert the neighborhood. So for somebody to say that they alerted the neighborhood by Boston Globe, and by the 8 abutters that were notified, one of them was a human being who doesn't live there. One of the abutters that was officially notified was the United States of America, the Commonwealth of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So it's kind of a joke. No offense, Ross, you did your job, but other people would have known better that we are geographically an abutter, and we deserve to be treated that way. Okay, so there's a $27 million pier on the island that's less than 1 mile away from the new pier. So, Mr. Lasky, if people like to walk 3 miles, then why do we need another pier? Because they can just walk down there. And there's also a $2 million pier at the town landing of Winthrop that's listed on the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website as a handicapped accessible fishing location. So here we're going to have another $1.5 million pier, and if the goal of the fishing license fund is to expand fishing access, and you look at the map and you see Deer Island's own map shows a fishing spot at the south end of the island, then we have a fishing spot in Winthrop Landing. Maybe you need to look elsewhere on the empty map and figure out where you can really give new access to fishing. And then the project callously intends to pave over exceptional and dwindling green space for parking. All the while, there's room for at least 400 cars down there through the security gates. And that's all been paid for by taxes, and it's fenced off from the public, and that's a beautiful scenic vista. And from the hill overlooking Boston, it will be forever altered. So that will be your legacy, Mr. Lasky, so congratulations. And then in Fairhaven, there was a similar pier proposed. 150 townspeople had a opposition to it and signed a petition, and the town pulled support. And here we had 300 signatures in opposition within like a week and a half, and we got nothing. We got no phone call, nothing from you. And by the way, like, aren't there only 2 patrolmen at all times out of Revere Barracks? Can you say that, please?
The minimum is dusk at 2, so one patrol will cover Route 1 to Revere Beach Parkway, Chelsea to Everett. And the other patrol will be from Deer Island, Winthrop Shore Drive, Winthrop Parkway, Revere Beach Boulevard, Linway, Nahant. So if one of our patrols have an arrest, we're tied up.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have no offense to you, we just feel like we're sort of, it's the Wild West over there, and that's why we're very upset that we haven't been involved at all. And in the same year that the MWRA increased our water rates by $244,000, this is the same year that they are putting in $277,000 of their own money for that parking lot to pave over that green space. So, right, well, wherever it's coming from, it's from the MWRA own budget. It is not state funded. And lastly, there's no one in a leadership position here in this town that's going to break rank and say that Winthrop, the town of Winthrop, has nothing to gain from this pier. In fact, we have everything to gain in more nuisances and the degradation of our community. No, I think you have to.
Another thing we're going to do in response is we're going to install... Well, one of the concerns has been that there's no way to contact people if there's an issue down towards the gate of the island. And so our thought is to put in 2 of these as well as 6 more cameras, or 3 of them, I'm sorry. 3 of them down in that area, one by the pier, one by the parking lot, and one by the road. And then put 6 new cameras for a total of 28 cameras on the island that are monitored in our security. I also, again, we're going to change the hotline. We're going to change.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
So if my 14-year-old is down there and, God forbid, she's attacked by someone, and she tries to use one of these emergency things to call for help, what would be that response time, and who would respond?
The initial response, the way we have the plan worked out, is that the Allied Barton would run down with the pickup truck, and if need be, assess the situation, if need be, call the police. That's our contracted security company.
I got a cell phone too, I don't need that. Cell phone does the same thing.
Security is not police.
It's not police presence. I mean, look at Piers Park and the Massport police presence there. Jeffrey's Point went from a rundown, crime-ridden neighborhood to a very respectable neighborhood with a lovely park that's used and enjoyed by many because there is a Massport police presence there all the time. They close it, they monitor it, they have an office on site. It doesn't make any sense to me to not have any type of on-site police presence with authority to do anything that's needed there. Not, oh, we can't do that, that's Boston, or no, that's state. No, that's environmental. You know, it needs to be pulled together.
You gotta wait till the officer gets from Nahant down to Deer Island.
And shouldn't it be posted? Shouldn't it be posted on that road What's Boston? What's Winthrop? Where are we entering? Nobody knows.
No, there's a line.
There's a line.
line.
There's a
in the
line.
road.
There's a line. Perfect.
There's a
I'll
line.
look for the line the next time I go down.
Well, I talked about that. People have asked about what do our security people who are in the security building up towards the main gate see. This is one of, right now, the 22 cameras that they watch full-time around the island. And this is the main parking lot. There are about 3 different versions of this on the parking lot. This is the same location at night with the night vision cameras as well. Those will be installed at the fish pier, at the new parking lot, and there's another spot there. There'll be 6 new cameras, plus the call boxes. So we will see, if a call box goes off, we will automatically be able to see what is going on. In many cases, they may just call the police right there from the security building. But again, and this comes at no small cost. We're talking about over $250,000 in new cameras to make sure that we keep that area safe. I'm sorry?
If your security guards are gonna see something going on in your camera,
Yeah.
are they truly gonna call? Because
Yeah, they do.
I don't believe you. I don't, because you just said 10 minutes ago, we saw bonfires outside of our perimeter. Your security, I don't need that. Your security, thank you.
They can't pick you up on that.
But your security guard would have had to see the bonfires if they were on the outside of your perimeter, but they didn't call anyone. So why are they going to call anyone with more security cameras if they see something going on? I don't have faith in that.
The cameras focus on our property. They don't go off into someone else's property. So they're set up in a way to record what's going on MWRA property. So the fact that I've heard secondhand that there are fires farther down on the beach outside of our jurisdiction or property line, why is that my responsibility to watch that? I'm sorry?
There's been pictures of the bonfires on the walkway, or people are fishing currently.
There's a picture of some charred wood at one point, is what I saw. But again, like I say, that was the July that I mentioned, the July 15th, the July 2015 fire. That was the picture that I saw.
I've seen several fires down on the beach. Where I live, I can overlook the island and the beach. And
They can't hear.
I says where I live, I can see the bonfires from my window late at night, the fishermen.
Yeah.
Lighting fires, blasting the radio, drinking, laughing. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I've called the Winthrop Fire Department several times for them, and they have to waste one of their trucks to go down there to put out a fire, because I'm afraid it's going to catch fire and all our houses burn down there because of all the dead weeds that are all over there. So I'm afraid of that.
But is it
And
on our property or is it on the green
It's
property?
right down behind your parking lot at the beginning. They were lighting bonfires down there. There was a big pit where they would have their parties, and it's a party, not a official fishing thing.
Yeah.
The pier is going to be official party pier. They're going to be down there like they have in a lot of other places, partying all night long. You're going to get the gangs are going to find a nice place to hang around again, just like MS-13 did. We can go down there. We're not going to be bothered. It's going to happen,
Well,
Fred.
one of
It
the
really
things-
is. And we
one-
appreciate what you do for the town of Winthrop, too, but we're concerned about
Well-
our own neighborhood.
I mean, our thought is that between the cameras and between the lighting, we're going to put low-impact lighting so it focuses down on the pier, that they're not going to hang, if these are gangs or whatever it may be, they're not going to hang around under a spotlight with a camera recording them.
But they were doing it before, Fred, right on the front parking lot. They were doing it before. They didn't care. They don't care. Do you think MS-13 cares about anybody and anything?
We have all these cameras because that was the complaint, that they were hanging around the parking lot. And so we've...
But they didn't do anything. The state police did it.
They just do the drug deals there, Fred, and then they race back downtown. The people that go up on the hills, there's no security, there's no policing. And from what you guys are talking about, you're gonna take shifts here, shifts there, it makes perfect sense now that you need to have some sort of a police annex built right on the island that's manned 24/7, 365, with active patrolling. So if you got guys on bikes going around the island on the paths that people are supposed to be on, then you can see what's going on. You can check fishing licenses and all that. It needs to be actively patrolled. And if something goes wrong, like last week, 2 state troopers came down, I think you might even been one of them, No, you. And they came down early in the morning. It was about 5:30 in the morning with the blues running. And we drove down just to see what was going on. And so we talked to the troopers, and he said, someone called because someone out here is acting really crazy. Did you guys call him? We said, no. So what did they do? They walked towards the beach, and then they came back, they saw nothing, and he said, how big is this island anyway? I said, oh, about 2.5 miles around. So obviously he's telling me they can't walk around the island and find the threat. And all they did was they got back in their cars and they left. And that'll be filed as nothing found here, folks. Move along. You've got to have some active patrolling on that island. If you're going to open it up, and don't forget, you get those methane tanks down there. It's a security risk. And
that's why we don't want them coming inside, John.
If anything alone, that park should be closed just for the fact that you don't have active security and it's open 24/7. That should be closed down at night. If none of these other places like Nut Island or whatever have this kind of threat, as if you want to call it a threat, that's active, and then you're allowing people to go fishing if they're not fishing or whatever they're doing on that island. And you've got to have, I would put an annex on there, like a visitor center with real bathrooms, and I would have active fishing game there. Right, as a matter of fact, your gate, when you go in your security gate, if you look at gate 21, it's about 20 feet down from the gate. So if they go in through that gate in a car, you can see who's in that car, what's in that car, you can check the licenses, then you direct them through that gate 21. That goes on the walkway on the outside of your gate. But that walkway takes you right to the pier. Now, if you open up gate 21 on that pier, there's 400 car parking facility down there. And you're letting them fish on the other end of the pier now. So you've just got one fence here that's keeping them from using the rest of the pier. So why build a brand new pier at $1.5 million when you can just open that gate up? You could put the policing right down on that pier, checking fishing licenses and everything, and have everybody like kind of in a group around there. That pier is plenty big enough to fish off of, and it will keep pretty much everybody safe down there. But I think what you're going to do to keep the gangs and everybody that's not supposed to be there doing the wrong things is if they know that there's active patrolling on that island, they won't come down. And so those call boxes, yeah, you're going to spend a lot of money just setting up that stuff. But Fred, honestly, it's a waste of money because it's like anything else. It's not active, and if anything, it's going to go report everything back to your station. And if your guys in the station, aren't paying attention, whatever, they're not law authority. They don't have the power to arrest. They don't have the power to stop. So by the time they make a call, there's another 10, 15 minutes before somebody gets down there. That's a lifetime. 15 minutes is a life. If you got somebody walking on the other side of that island and they're drunk and something's going on there and it happens to be, God forbid, a woman, by the time you get there, it's over. This is a big island and it needs active policing.
Aren't the methane tanks like 40 feet from the walk path on the Atlantic Ocean side?
I'm sorry?
Aren't the methane tanks like 40 feet off the walking path on the Atlantic Ocean
I don't know how far,
side?
maybe 100 feet? Where's
I mean,
Dave?
people don't have to drive to them. They have just a walking path by them. So
Right,
I
you
think
walk right by them, yeah.
it seems like a false, sort of diversion to say cars can't drive in there because the methane tanks are on the other side, right where people walk. But also, Ross, I have a question about how, if we have like at least 1,000 people a weekend or more down there and there's no proper bathrooms, I don't know where you think those people are going to the bathroom. And then doesn't the state have a best practices guide on setting up fish cleaning stations at fishing locations so that what is happening now will stop happening, where people are cutting up their fish and leaving all of the fish guts everywhere and causing vermin? I mean, I found that on the Commonwealth website, and there's some of those approval documents, I think from maybe the United States government or Coast Guard says, and we expect you to put up MWRA signage about waste removal and things like that, and I saw nothing like that in any of the project documents.
Well, a lot of the signage is not up yet. At many of our fishing locations, we actually do not allow fish filleting, cleaning, and disposal at those sites. The main way that we limit that is by the size of cutting boards we put out, and we direct that only bait cutting can take place on them. You're supposed to, with many of our species, you're not technically supposed to cut them up in the field anyhow. So that's one way. And yes, a lot of these things are on our website.
I have a question for you. How did you select Winthrop down to Deer Island for your pier? And you didn't like even have, like, let's have a town meeting and let's talk about this, you know, being 4 years ago. And, you know, I can't put it all off on Fred, but Fred did bring it up at the meetings. But every time we talked about security, and I mean every meeting, it was like, well, it may not be funded, it may not even be happening, so we'll worry about it later. And then the very last meeting, Fred, which I really didn't like, is before the meeting closed. When we brought up the security issue again, you said, well, we'll build it and we'll worry about it then. And that's when everybody said, we don't want it. And you ended the meeting, and then when we went to have our early spring meeting this year, we were kind of put off. I mean, we know there was someone who retired. You know, he was Len. He was really good, and we contacted his replacement, and we kept getting pushed off, and we don't know yet, we don't know yet, we don't know yet. And then we found out through the grapevine that sometime in June, the pier was going to start being built. So we thought you were going to an end run and not having a meeting with us. And after we had that protest, after we had the protest at the town hall, we got the email from you saying, voila, now we're going to have the meeting, and we're going to have it down on the, what was it, the 20th? Down there, down to Deer Island. So I want it to be, if you're going to go ahead and do this, you've got to do it the right way. You can't piecemeal it. You can't look at it and say, well, we'll deal it with when things happen. This is a prime spot for crime. It's already been proven, FBI, MS-13, assaults, domestic abuse, all the crap that goes on down here. You need active policing. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
That's
All right, so I'd like to address Officer O'Connell as well as Ross. And Ross, do you fish Deer Island at night?
I fished around
At night, like from shore. So do you see the guys, you know, taking short fish, over limit, not having licenses? I commend you for doing a check this week, but it happens all the time. One scheduled a week, you know, patrol isn't going to do it. You need to be vigilant. I mean, they're gonna, like down the canal, you go see it, and yeah, they're making a show of it. But people know Deer Island isn't patrolled by anyone. No one cares. They're gonna go do what they're gonna do. You're gonna see a Home Depot bucket full of short fish being taken out, and then you're gonna see them sold at the Liberty Plaza in East Boston. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's what happens. I mean, you haven't fished it at night. You haven't fished it enough.
I've fished extensively through the Commonwealth at
but
night.
not Deer Island. This is not
think
your home.
very
It's not your
indicative of
backyard.
A lot of places in the state.
So, well, I'm glad you have.
And I've also spoken with fishing professionals around here who are familiar with it.
I'm
You can't
glad
be a
you have.
professional in all
I'm
areas.
born and raised here and fished
Yeah.
my whole life, and I remember the moratorium days. That's where we're going. If it has eyes, it dies. Sorry. I mean, you want to give them a pier, but you don't want to give us enforcement. Once a week patrol, these security guards that they're going to see on the cameras with the call box.
Of that, I said all three agencies would get together once a week.
Okay.
The environmental police patrolling on their own, the state police patrolling on their own, and the deputy chief has directed our bikes to patrol on their own down there as well. So I just want to make the record clear
thank
that
you,
once
Chief
a week, I
Bellingham.
think all three agents, I think it's important once a week that all three agencies do get together.
Correct.
And collaborate and do a
But
heavy
let's go-
enforcement. But
Let's go
just
back
so-
to the security.
Sure,
So
I
the
just want to make sure
secur-
that's clear. Thank you.
The security is watching in these cameras. Are they watching for the person taking a 14-inch striper? Do they know the regulations on that? Do they know the regulations on flounder, bluefish? I mean, they're not going to even make the call. So to have a fishing pier, let's make sure we're protecting the fish. It's not about denying fishermen access. A good fisherman is going to follow the rules. But there's going to be a bad egg in every element of society. And a lot of them know to go to Deer Island. I hate to say it.
Okay, thank you. That's a segue, I think, to our... That's a segue to one of our last slides, and that is that Council President Vecchia called a group together and basically said he was sick and tired of hearing this with all the various jurisdictions about who's in charge and who does what and who does what. So he called a meeting of the state police, the environmental police, the Winthrop police, Winthrop Fire, the MWRA, and basically said he was sick and tired of this notion that who's got jurisdiction, who's on first, and he wanted all the parties to work out some kind of MOU or some kind of agreement that once and for all would clarify who has authority and how can they all work together, because he's tired of hearing stories about people calling and cars coming from Nahant and this and that and the other thing. So he frankly read everyone the Riot Act and said, you got to get your acts together and come up with a plan. And it's my understanding that those negotiations continue on with the state police. There was a big meeting the other day with Deputy Chief Goodwin and the state police over at the Revere Barracks. The environmental police were there. The environmental police, as a result of that meeting, have agreed to put a gator there so that they can go off into the, John mentioned about people who are off the trails and whatever. And so I think that we're seeing what's coming to fruition in this thing is that once and for all, we're going to have some kind of coordinated plan by the various jurisdictions, and everyone will know what the responsibility is and who's going to respond and who's going to get the 911 call. So while it was uncomfortable to be dressed down by the council president, I think it was a good positive step forward.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
I want to know who gave you permission to bring additional traffic through the point? Who gave you permission to do that? We've got your trucks. You've got a pier that's fallen apart that was supposed to be taking trucks from Charlestown over to Winthrop, to Deer Island. Instead, those trucks are still going through our streets down the point. When are you going to...
Which ones now? I'm sorry.
I'm
from
sorry?
From Charlestown? You said trucks from Charlestown are going?
Wherever the starting point was supposed to be. They were supposed to barge those...
Yeah, that never occurred.
No kidding.
Yes.
No kidding. We've got those... You let that pier go to wreck and ruin that's down there. Now,
Right.
who's going to maintain this pier?
We're going to maintain the day-to-day and the capital stuff. It'll be the marine fisheries.
So can we just call the whole thing off? We don't want the pier. Can we just call it off? You have bigger fish to fry. I have news for you. With those methane tanks down there, you're a terrorist delight. Okay? There's no security down there. A little C4 on one of those tanks, boy, and you're going to blow up everything.
Thank you. Sir, up there? This gentleman's been waiting.
Can I make a point?
Sure.
I was a manager at Massport for 25 years. The end of my career was over at the Bremen Street Park and the Piers Park. So I have a little bit of credibility, and I also supervise the Massport police officers, but back in those days, they were called security. So I have a little bit of credibility on these issues. I know human nature really well, and most of those guys in there, they go in every day, they punch a card, they come and go. I don't know what you're paying them. We were probably paying them a whole lot more. But it's just human nature. They get away with stuff at times that you're unaware of until something blows up in your face. And thank God Baby Doe was not a child that was murdered out on the island, which we all realize could easily have happened. I'm sure everybody's heart skipped a beat wondering, did that actually happen on the island? I happen to have known from the currents that it was going to come over there because all the stuff from Black Falcon always ended up on those beaches. So that's one issue I have, that, those security people, they're in there, they're punching their card, they're coming and going, and they're not really watching those cameras. No matter how many cameras and how many detect systems we put up around there, they figured out a way around it. So I get that. All right, so that part of it scares me, the fact that there's so much area around there that is unpatrolled regularly. And as much as you want to say you're doing your job, and I walk there all the time, I noticed the great recycling bins recently. I've noticed the guys out there cleaning up a lot more, but I also happen to count barrels because that was the other thing, really the end of my career was maintaining the property and supervising all the maintenance people down there. And I talked to the guys down there because I had to talk to my crew all the time. You removed all those barrels because I had certain barrels I always knew where they were for my dog's poop, unfortunately, but nonetheless, you removed a ton of the barrels. Now you're saying to us, oh, let's put those barrels back. And you don't have a regular maintenance staff down there. So on the weekends, people really try to clean up. I see it all piled up against the barrels down there because you don't have anybody there on Sunday. And When they come in on the Saturday, it's probably like early in the morning from the Friday night before, but there's just like a ton of debris around there regularly. It's not being maintained, and, you know, bottom line, that you call it now a state park. Did anybody here in this town know that we had a state park? When I heard about this, and I laid out in the road, because I was a New Point Shirley resident in 1984.
It's a
and we tried
national
to stop
park.
it. Excuse me, a national park, excuse me. I had no idea it was a national park until recently. And what gives you the credo to go and manage a national park? I mean, aren't you supposed to be watching the MWRA? I mean, it's a sewage treatment plant. And that's what you're there for. And finally, as far as I know, any one of these fishermen or anybody down there, and I've had the problem many a time myself, okay, let's face it, they go out there for hours to fish. Where the heck do you think they're like getting rid of their raw sewage? But essentially, you were built to maintain raw sewage. So the simple fact that you never even put flush toilets out there, there's a couple of porta potties scattered around there in the middle of summer. Even the guys won't use it. And like women, we all know we're not going to use it if we have no choice. We'd rather go in the darn bushes. But you were created to handle raw sewage. And somewhere in there, I get like crazily confused that we didn't ever put up a flush toilet out there anywhere for anybody. Furthermore, and my last point, oh God, I forgot what that point was, but it was going to be really good. But I know how hard it is for any of the people. I worked with the state troopers at Black Falcon. I know it's a tough job. You go in and it becomes a job. None of us want to admit it, but it all does happen. And people have bad days, and people aren't going to get up and walk around, Fred, and do that. I couldn't get the guys to go out there and walk around Black Falcon all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many issues came up that they missed. And it's just being human. Nobody does it on purpose. But you're running now what kind of a park again? National park? Yeah, but you were created to be raw sewage treatment plant. And could we have some water bubblers? That was my last point. I had a heat stroke walking around there once. And thank God there's a million of those benches, which now remind me of walking through a Winthrop cemetery, by the way, much the same. I mean, I do like them, but I went from bench to bench, kept praying to myself, maybe I'll get picked up on the camera, that somebody will find my body out there eventually, and my brothers won't go, the damn fool, went out there for a walk in a heat wave, and now we're at, Kirby's for her wake. Give me a break, there's not even a water bubbler. I mean, can't we have more water bubblers? We got one, you have to make it to the guard shack. And that's all I have to say. And Keith, who worked for McLaughlin Brothers, can tell us how much this will cost to put in water bubblers.
No, my opinion on this, that proactive, aggressive law enforcement, not reactive on-call response.
The message is clear.
And if Chief wants to hire me, I can take care of the problem down there.
Something can be absolutely put together about seal it tight on
That's the problem. Nobody's there to see the crime. Remember, your security did not find Baby Doe. That was a walker that found
Yeah. One of our employees found. No, and one of our employees was there and was with the person, and was quite traumatized by it. So, sir.
Yes, thank you. I'm a Winthrop resident, avid fisherman. I live to fish. I live the life, and I moved to Winthrop to actually fish, and I'm happy to see clean water, and it's the result of the treatment plant. It's not brown and dingy when I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we have a great fish, the winter flounder, they're healthy now, and this spot is excellent for winter flounder for the shore anglers. And it's a healthy fish to eat. I believe MWRA and fisheries have done tons of studies that have proved that they are healthy to eat. You know, I spend my time fishing, and my thoughts are that I do a lot of my fishing out of a kayak, and I'm just asking if there will be paddle fishing access for those on the car tops from the parking lot to get down from maybe the left side of the pier to actually have a launch area to get to this fishing ground without hopping the wall. All these years we've been hopping that wall and making the best of what we have, but maybe at some point that we can look at having access for the car top folks that can actually get down to the water level without climbing the concrete wall.
That currently is not in the plan, but we do install a lot of what you call car top launches, canoe kayaks, and going forward, that's certainly something we would look at and not be opposed to, and that would be an approved activity for the parking lot. The parking lot will be for active fishing only. That's the signage will explain that as well. And that's what it's supposed to be limited to. It was going to be shared use, but that's no longer the case. So, but if active fishing of any type would be permitted parking there. Shared use was going to be non-anglers. That's what the additional 20 parking spaces were for. If you're not fishing, you cannot park in those spots, no. This was funded with fishing license money. 1/3 of all, they're paying for lights and security. They're not paying for the parking lot.
We wanted to add the 20 spaces for that reason, and also to get more traffic off of Taft's Avenue. And we got pushback from a number of places within the town that didn't want the extra spaces. We thought it was a good, if the parking lot's going to be there, add the extra 20 places. It gets rid of the traffic that goes down Taft's and all the streets up on the left. But again, some people didn't like that, and so we backed off on it. So, who's got the? Then I'll come to you, okay?
This gentleman down there with the glasses did bring up a lot of good points at the beginning around why don't you open up a gate and then you don't have to do a new parking lot.
Yeah, you can open up one gate like 20 feet after the guard check, so they can check who comes in, check for fishing licenses right there, and then just direct them, down right to the pier.
So my question is,
It's Fred. Well, do you,
that would address some of these concerns with green space going away. And it seems like it's already there. You'd be saving money, you would have more security. You're asked a lot of questions and you don't answer any of them. You just go on to the next.
Plus, we've been in touch with the Audubon Society too, and they're preparing a study about
I
that
thought I
metal.
had answered this particular question, so that is, this is a heavy industrial complex. The methane digesters, all the various pieces to this facility, and it's really against kind of the national standards to open up the interior of a wastewater treatment plant to the public. And so that's one aspect of it, is that we would have to let the public into the inside perimeter of the plant. Right now, all of this is outside of the fence of the plant. So that's one piece of it. The other is, it's
a walking path, it's your fence and the digesters, there's a walking path, then there's another fence, and then there's the pier. So there is a space between your property and the pier. And the pier's already there, it's bigger than what you want to build here, it doesn't cost anything, and it's easy to patrol and maintain. You put a police officer down there right on the pier, problem solved. You want to fish, you fish. So, and they're going to go all around the island anyway, and that's another reason why you need active patrols, either on bikes or in a vehicle. But they need to, if they know that their license is being checked, they'll come down there legally. Because I ask a lot of fishermen that go down there, I say, why don't you go to Castle Island? They go, well, they don't check licenses here. And that's every time.
well, I think that's going to end. I think that's going to end with the agreement that's been forged. And let me just say another thing. We are an environmental agency. The question had been asked, why are you even in this business? Well, because there was a discussion early on, back 35 years ago, just put a gate across and don't let anyone in. And the decision was made that, hey, this is an environmental agency, this is an incredible asset if it's done right, and so let's build the plant and let's have open space public access. And I think part of the issue here is the success of that open space. And it's become an area where people drive a long way to come and walk, to walk their dogs, to have a picnic, to fly a kite, whatever, for fish. And so it's very, very popular. It's on, if you go on the Winthrop Chamber of Commerce webpage and things to do in Winthrop, the biggest thing is go to Deer Island. So it's a very, well, I know, but again, it's our,
It's done right, excuse me, and Massport did do it right over at Pier Park and Brennan Street Park. They did put in flush toilets, maintenance
Well-
team, and I get it, the budget item for all that isn't in your budget now, okay? I'm sure you never put in a budget item for this kind of expense.
we looked at it, we did look at it. We looked at public,
I thought it was actually a mitigation, that park was for us Winthrop residents, hopefully Point Shirley people, that it was a small mitigation area for us to help us adjust to the transition from a prison to a wastewater treatment center for all of the communities that their roster which goes through them. We get no break on our bills for this host community, which essentially is in Boston. I get it, okay? But nonetheless, do it right. When you say do it right, Massport did. They stepped up to the plate and they did do it right. And it became a jewel. But this is just sitting out there and it's not getting the attention. And you want to expand it and let more people come.
I don't-
I stand with one Winthrop and the whole
Well-
group out there last weekend, and we have no issue with the people that come down there, that the MS3, MS13, I'm sorry. But nonetheless, we're not saying not them, and that's their whole indigenous background is what they did. They came down to fish, and we see them. They go by my house all the time on the bicycles. They come with their family and friends. It's something that they're used to doing for years in their country, and they love to do it. Nobody wants to take that away from them, and I don't want anybody to even think that that's the case. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about the fact we want you to do it right. Step up to the plate, take care of it.
well, I'll just say this. I take great pride in being part of the Deer Island open space. And I know you have issues, I know you have safety issues, and you have other legitimate complaints. But I think it's a beautiful place. And I think it is well maintained. And I think it was well designed. It's beautiful. And it was built in a way to block much of the view of the plant, block the view with the big hill. And I mean, I get compliments all the time about, hey, I was out at Deer Island. What a great spot. Wasn't it beautiful? Best skyline views of the city of Boston. Great views of Massachusetts Bay. People like the benches. You can sit on the bench. So I guess I don't accept the idea. I don't accept the idea that we haven't done the open space right. I think we have done it right. And I don't know that it.
Go and do any favors to Winthrop by building a fishing pier. I see every now and then right across from Gerald Beach, 7, 8 cars there. They're all on that jetty out there fishing. Okay? If they want to fish, they'll find a spot to fish. You don't have to build a pier for them. What I'm saying is the safety is more important than you going out and putting a fishing pier.
Kathy, I told that lady she could go next, and I'll go to you.
Fred, whatever
Hang
you
on.
want to do.
Yes. I'm sorry?
I don't want you talking over Heather.
Well, I think we can make it safe, sir, and I think I've conveyed that to you. I think we can, with the cooperative effort of the police department, with the high-tech security issues we're looking to put in, and diligence, we can take care of whatever issues might be out there with the fishing pier. And that's I mean.
24 hours a day, Fred.
And then when something happens, you say, oh, we made a mistake.
It's the response time.
You mentioned just a moment ago about people fishing on jetties, and people can go there. Well, you know what? People who, handicapped people, elderly, young, can't fish on jetties, and that's why we're building that's why we plan to build a handicapped accessible pier, we have handicapped accessible railings that go with it. So, this is our plan and this is our design, so.
Harbor masters on site if anything happens. Defibrillator, you know,
So,
heart attack.
anyhow, this, I'm not gonna back down from the handicapped accessible idea. We take great pride in that, and that's the reason why jetties are not necessarily good enough for all people at all times.
This lady's been waiting very patiently. Ma'am?
Many times, Mr. Lasky, you have said, we thought or we felt, on, I think the comment made as far as the beautiful walks and all, I don't think that was meant to say that it wasn't done well, that you're proud of. What we're saying is when you say, you have a right to be proud of that, you have a right to your feeling on that, we have the right and should have the consideration of how we've been feeling about a plan that was not sent to those of us who have to watch yesterday, tanker go by, texting, cool. Shaking our houses, yes. These are things we have a right to know about. Glossy folders about the new odor line, I would have appreciated, like the person, thank you, whoever you are, $500 to send out those cards. You could have sent out those cards. The 8 properties, give or take, were not the ones impacted. We are. The pier that is not acceptable, apparently, for fishing was put there on our belief, told would happen, would not have said chemical trucks, said workers that we can't get out of our driveways. Did it happen? It did not. So, credibility when we aren't notified ahead, we aren't told what might be or could be until, oh, we'll do that later. That's called not getting what we need to have a secure lifestyle. So all of this idea has not been what we would like you to know. What you thought is not what we think. Guarantee you. You're not having your house shaken, you're not having your pipes screwed up, you're not having people go by on texting with a big, huge chemical truck and worrying about the sidewalks and the people. That's our life. So when you do this and say the Boston Globe, we don't all read the Globe first. Second of all, that's not a place to put an announcement. And I was at that meeting too, and it was said, if the neighborhood is against it, this will not happen. And again, we are against it. The information tonight that when you call it anything to do under Fish and Games, that by law it has to be 24/7, that seals it right there to us. Right there. 24/7, it can't be controlled in a way that would be secure with, very close by, definitely a terrorist delight. You gotta be kidding. For handicap, that's not a reason to put it on Deer Island. Town Landing has that, no problem. This was not a good sighting. This did not have neighborhood input. This is not right for us. And in the future, anyone who wants to know what a good idea is, feel free. We all are listed in the phone book, and for what, $500, you notified everybody? Awesome. This is not fair. This is not going to be, again, what will happen after the fact. Because I'm still watching those trucks go through, and I'm still paying along with my neighbors for major pipe work under our houses, our property, from the shaking. It didn't happen before, it won't happen again. Sorry, our credibility with you people on that is zero.
Hi, Fred. One of the things I wanted to address, because I have the MOU in front of me, which you know me, I always have my facts in front of me. You had mentioned that it was the authority, or MWRA, but I call it the authority's responsibility to maintain the pier. Just give me a second to read from the MOU between the Department of Fisheries and the MWRA. The MWRA shall be responsible for funding and staffing, which in its sole discretion, which means whatever they want to do, it believes to be necessary for the operation and monitoring of the facilities, which will be substantially self-operating, which means no monitoring, in nature, and will require no, I repeat, no, day-to-day active assistance from the MWRA. Who's responsible then? Now I'll go on to where, while MWRA shall have no obligation to enforce compliance with any provisions of the regulations, MWRA shall use reasonable efforts to bring repeated or chronic violations of the regs to the attention of Mass Fisheries and/or appropriate law or code enforcement officials, and to cooperate with said officials. The problem that people, and I'm not a Point resident, but the problem, like especially, I'm sorry, Mr. Department of Fisheries, I don't know your name, that people, and I'm not a Point resident, are having, sir, is that there isn't current security and maintenance and checking of what's going on. I think it's lovely that you went down and fished. I don't fish, I don't like fish, to be quite frank, but I think it's lovely that you did that. You're not doing that on a day-to-day basis. So to be a little passive-aggressive with people that are actually doing it and know what's happening in their communities is disingenuous. It's just frankly disingenuous. So, and then there's a couple of other points I'd like to make from, again, it's not you, sir, but the MOU, because you're the representative here from the Department of Fisheries. There's another point in here. Mass Fisheries and MWRA shall devote sufficient funds from its annual legislative appropriations and budgets to provide for the cost of annual maintenance, repairs, inspections, which will be necessary to keep the entirety of the parking area in constant condition of good repair, free of all known and obvious defects, conditions which would, present unreasonable risk, injury, loss, or death to the public. There are so many back and forths in this MOU between who's responsible for what, who's not responsible for what, and it's so unclear. We need a new MOU. There needs to be a new MOU between the Department of Fisheries, because I'm in the legal field, I can read through this nonsense. There needs to be a new MOU between the authority and the Department of Fisheries, and I'd like the town of Winthrop to also be involved, to have clear delineations as to who's responsible for what. There has been a problem at the island with security issues, trash, sanitary issues, and the like. And yes, and my town government doesn't like me to say it, but I've said it at public meetings and I'll say it again. Our town, our current town officials have been fabulous getting involved in this, thank God. Nick LaConte, Ron Vecchia, who are here and getting involved. I truly, and Heather Engman, I truly praise you. We need a new MOU, Fred. This isn't sufficient. I'm a paralegal, and I can go through this MOU, and no one's responsible for anything. Let's get an MOU, because again, we've amended this now twice. Let's get an MOU together that's actually responsible, that actually has accountability, and that actually makes people responsible, and there's clear delineations as to who's doing what. I'm a proud sister of a police officer, and I don't like the fact that people are, whether it's Terry or whether it's our environmental guy or the nice state police guy that I met outside, and we're trying to figure out who's responsible. It's not their responsibility to figure out who's responsible. It's the people we elected in the authority in our town government in the Department of Fisheries to get this right, because it's not right. I could drive a truck through this. So please, get to the table. If you don't want to have these town meetings with people being angry and irritated, sit back at the table, get our advice, and do it right, please.
Hi, Mr. Lasky. I'm Cookie Capezza. I live on Townsend. I'm one of your abutters that was never notified. Never. I was at home after a long day watching this on TV, and my blood was boiling. And I got in my car, so I'm sorry I'm late, but I was so pissed off because you lied. I was at that meeting, original meeting, when you brought this proposal up, and we were against it. We never said we were in favor of it. You were there, Kathy was there, a bunch of us were there. Who the hell down the point would want anything else coming into the point? Are you kidding me? Why would you be worrying about 40 fishermen when 300 of us are against this? We have the 3 o'clock madmen leaving your place in speed. I'm 68 years old. I'm too tired. I want to be home resting. I don't want to be here arguing with you. People tell me to walk around the island. I don't feel safe walking around the island by myself. I can't walk. The dogs are loose. There's dog bites, pit bulls, other breeds. I don't feel safe. I've got the 3 o'clock madmen coming out of there. Very rarely do I see a police car on Shirley Street. I'm watching them at 3 o'clock. I'm going out there with my black blow dryer, and I'm going to pretend it's a radar. I am so sorry that I haven't been able to get involved with the Stop the Pier because of some other personal things I've been dealing with. And I'm going to ask you a direct question, Mr. Lasky, and I've spoken to you many times. And this could be a bitch session where we just throw up on you emotionally, but I want you to answer some stuff. I want to know if you lived on Taft's or Townsend or Otis or close to being a butter, and your grandchildren were there, or your children were there, or your mother was there, or your wife, and you were crossing the street, what would you do? What would you do if you were us? Would you live there? Or would you be here complaining? I want an answer.
I think...
No, I want an answer. I am not going to throw up on you emotionally. I would like you to answer me.
I think I would be frustrated too.
Okay, so what would you do? Please let him answer, please.
No.
Please answer this. Or Mr. Delahanty, if your children, your beautiful family was there and you were living on Taft, I want him to answer first and then I'd like you to answer. And you had your child, you said, go out and play. And you see them driving past 40, 50 miles an hour down on Taft's. What would you do to your kids? Keep them in the house on a beautiful beach day?
I think it's easy for me to answer first since this second question came last. I don't let my kids play on Highland Ave, so I wouldn't certainly let them play on Taft Ave.
We have the beach there. We have the bay there. We want to fish, we want to swim, we want to do anything.
I got Pond Street, I got Seal Harbor.
Are you telling us to keep our kids in?
What I'm telling you is everyone needs to watch their children, yes.
Of course we do.
My mine are 12 and 13, I still watch them.
Are you waiting for a car accident to happen on Shirley? Because that's what's going to happen.
We anticipate car
You have a
accidents everywhere.
person that's house has been driven into by somebody because they ran the stop sign. Okay? At 3 o'clock, have you ever been there at 3 o'clock?
I have.
And what do you
Numerous occasions. It depends on the day. Some days you get no cars, and some days you get cars.
Oh, no, 3 o'clock is when their shift is ended.
I can show you the data.
The shift ends at 3.
I know
live
exactly what time his shift ends.
3:05, they zoomed down there. And only last Friday did they slow down because they had a party. And they were probably told, do not speed because you were drinking at the party. I am sure of that.
I was at that party, and there was no alcohol being served. I only stayed until 12:30, but
Okay.
I don't think that's fair
Okay, Mr.
to assume that they were drinking on
You keep your
on
children
duty on
in. I want to
time.
know what Mr. Lasky would do.
I didn't say I'd keep my children in. They ride their bikes on the sidewalks.
You said you keep them in
Don't let them
Highland.
play on Highland Ave, I said.
We're not saying playing in the street. We're talking about crossing the street.
Yeah, my kids cross the street to go to school across the Ave and
So you don't
Highland
live
Ave.
here, Mr. Delahanty, so you can't sympathize with me.
No, I do sympathize.
No,
I
you
sympathize
don't.
with you because
No,
I
you
have the
don't.
speeding cars going up Highland Ave
No.
at 3 o'clock in the morning.
There's no
just like
cure
you.
for that. That's Winthrop property, and there's no police there. Yeah, there's a big difference. We have 18-wheel trucks with chemicals on it.
I understand what you have down there.
Why aren't you satisfying us instead of rationalizing it?
I'm not rationalizing anything. My job is to provide security for
It's
the
not
town
there.
of Winthrop.
It's not there.
Then we need to work on that.
We've been asking that. I've been there 10 years. I've never seen it.
Well, I disagree with you because we've been down there.
I've
And we
been
have
there
the tickets to prove
10
it.
years. I can get
Well, Taft Ave
I could get you
Taft Ave is my
300 people
jurisdiction.
here who will say the same thing I'm saying.
Well,
There's 300 people here that say they've seen the police down there. How many of you seen it? Handfuls? Mr. Lasky, I'm going to ask you again.
No, hang on one second.
You're frustrated.
hang on
I'm
one second.
frustrated.
You made an accusation that I want to address.
I didn't make
Right?
an accusation.
There was
I asked
no
you a
alcohol
question.
served at that
Okay, well, I
retirement
take
party
that
for a
back.
gentleman who worked for 40 years on. and was
I
the
take that back.
superintendent.
Let's not divert from that. Let's
No,
go
I'm not
back.
diverting, but
Yeah, you are.
I'm not going to let my staff be insulted.
Well,
about it.
let's
Don't
not
even mad at
divert.
me, be mad at me.
Well, you
But
know,
don't
so I
make
wish
up
you would get
stories.
that mad about this pier.
Well,
You know, you really, because you're protecting your employees. What about protecting us?
listen, we have worked as hard as we can with the police department on this issue of people speeding at the 3 o'clock. We have issued warnings to our staff. We have asked for and gotten radar control. We have paid for a radar thing on the pole.
Mr. Lasky, it's
And
not
we've
working.
And we've
It's
gone
not
on
working.
and on and on.
It's not working. It's not working.
So,
Mr. Lasky, what would you do if you lived on Taft's? No, please let him answer. Please don't
John.
give him an out.
No.
What would you do, Mr. Lasky, if you were frustrated?
I would do the same thing that John and Dawn and Kathy and all the other people who come to the meetings demand that we take action. And we go and we ask for, we put the radar guns out there, we put the cord across the street to count the number of cars, we put the radar thing up there, we issue memos to our staff, and again, once they leave our plant, once you leave your office and go home, or your work, you're on your own. So we do the best we
Mr.
can as
Lasky,
employees.
this is a very delicate little island. It's delicate. Now you've got new trucks coming out of your plant with these white sacks. Are those the wood pellets?
Which ones?
They have big
That's
sacks.
the carbon.
Carbon?
That's charcoal.
Okay, is this
That's
recent
charcoal.
because we have a ton
No,
of
it's-
delivery?
that's why we don't get any, well, we get very few out of control. Twice a year.
Okay,
And that's-
so
that's what
they could
reduces
barely
the-
make Veterans Road. I just want to make a note of that, that he could not make the turn at Veterans Road and had to go down Washington because it was a bad turn. My other question to you is, no toilet facilities. Where do they go to the bathroom, these 40 fishermen that you have parking spaces for?
There's porta
Please-
potties. We have porta potties on both
No,
sides
I'm
of the
asking
island.
you, near the pier. People go near the pier, or they go in the bush
We kinda
or
have
in the
them halfway,
water.
right? At the halfway point on either side? No, but do we have, I mean,
You don't even know, Mr. Lasky.
right, no,
You don't
I'm not,
know.
no, he's confirming what I just said. We have them by the guard shack.
I'm
and we
talking
have them
about
down the other end.
the pier. People who fish
We can put a
have to
porta-
pee.
we
They're
can
gonna
put a
leave
porta
their
potty by
rod,
the pier.
And they're not going to leave their rod for long because they're waiting for that fish, and he's going to pee in the bush or poop in the bush.
We can put a porta potty down by the pier.
You can.
Yes, we can.
That would
But-
be-
But
that
you,
would-
someone had mentioned, well, why don't you build a toilet? We looked into it, it was over $1 million.
That's right, it doesn't deserve to
It's a
be
lot
there
of
if you
money.
can't have a toilet.
So,
Right? I
All
come
right.
from Santa Monica, California. They have toilets, they have running water for their fishermen, because you know the blood, the guts, the worms, and all that on the pier. What do you do with that? Who's going to wash the pier? I'm a fisherman. I'm a fisherman, and I love to fish, but I am not going to allow fishing at the end of Deer Island when I've got truck issues, chemical issues, police issues. I called Winthrop Police to tell them about the 13 stolen bicycles that were tied to a tree, and the Winthrop Police told me to call the state police. I called the state police, and they said to me, sorry, we have nobody that can come out and get them. Those bikes stood there all winter tied to a tree. 13 stolen bikes. Am I right or wrong? Okay? Nobody dealt with it. Nobody dealt with that.
That's not the yellow and the green bikes that are
These
there.
were 13 bicycles that were stolen and were put right above the parking lot and tied to a tree. And I almost broke the chain and took one home. Okay? There were 13 of them, and they were stolen, and they were left there. Now, if they're stolen in the winter, I guarantee that behavior pattern, that element that you're going to be bringing in is going to be there. Again, if you lived there, Mr. Lasky, you would not stay. Do we have to move? Do we have to move? We love this town. I was born and raised here. Okay, I was at that meeting. You said, let's propose it. I've never gotten, like I said, I don't mean to reiterate, but I never got the abutters notice. I never got any kind of notice. Why do you think I dragged my ass here today? Because I'm so aggravated. I hear lie after lie. And you sit there and let me throw up emotionally, but you don't account for it. We need you to fix this, not listen to me. I need you to fix this and end this. I can't do any more treatment plants, any more trucks, any more accidents. Okay, that accident that happened to John, who doesn't deserve that. God forbid any of us were crossing this. You're shaking your head. That's rude.
No, I'm not. I just want to confirm that was not an MWRA employee involved in that.
We didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that, sir.
No,
I'm just saying that was one accident. Okay, we're waiting for the chemical truck spill. We're waiting for the one that goes and hits a car by accident. We're always worried about those chemical trucks. They don't go escorted all the time. You know that. They don't stop at the stop sign. I mean, I could go on and on. I sound like a crazy woman. I don't know what else to say to you, but you know what? It's bad enough I pay high water bills. We don't even want to go there. That's paying for a truck, somebody's raise, and this and that for $20 a cubic foot.
Cookie, I couldn't agree with you more.
I'm sorry. I'll end that, but Mr. Lasky, I'm going to ask you one more time. Again, if your grandchildren were living on Taft's Ave, abutted to the Deer Island plant, and they had to run out every time, and you say, kids, don't watch out for the chemical truck. Watch out for the fishermen. Watch out for Mass Water Resources people. What kind of enjoyment is that? Plus the airplanes, and believe me, you need to call noise control about the goddamn planes. Okay, do you know that Quincy gets more phone calls about the airplanes? We get 6 of them a week.
May I?
Yes, of course. You understand? So that's the end of my speech.
So Fred, thanks for listening to us. We really appreciate it. And from the bottom of my heart, I really do believe that you want what is best for Deer Island. But you just work there. This is our home. We have to deal with this stuff all the time. And I'm having a lot of trouble getting past what you said a year ago when you said, if we don't want this, it's not going to happen. And I'm wondering, from what you're hearing here, do you feel like we want this? And I'd like you to answer.
That's a rhetorical question, obviously, Counselor. Of course you don't want
Now,
it.
do you think that the neighborhood wants this pier?
Let me just say this. Many of the signs said, no security, no pier. Okay? And I can tell you, we can make it secure. Okay?
Actually, Fred, I'm asking you, do you think the neighborhood wants this pier as proposed? Can you please say yes or no and then cite the reasons why?
Obviously, the people in the crowd aren't happy with the current arrangement.
And so therefore, will you agree not to move forward with this proposal?
No, I won't agree to that.
Do you feel like you're honoring your word from the meeting? And how can you say that with the crowd here? Can you please cite why you think that?
I think that this is an incredibly positive step forward. Can I finish? right. Listen,
Ask him for who? Is that what you're telling us?
listen,
Fred, do you think that the neighborhood wants this? I mean, can we at least put this on pause while we sort these issues out? You're going to start construction in a couple of months. This is our homes. This is important to us.
all right. Listen,
Will you pause it, Fred?
no, I won't.
And why not?
I won't.
Yeah. Can you please answer why you will not?
I started to answer the question, okay? I believe that this is an incredible investment of funds, over $1.5 million in a very positive development, which is a pier. When you go on vacation and you go to various locations around, you want me to, listen, listen, time out. You're beating me up you folks have beaten me up pretty good tonight, and I've taken it, and I've let you have your say. And just let me talk for a couple of minutes, and then you can beat me up some more, okay? That's fine. That's why I make the big bucks and all that. But let me just say this. That was a joke. That was a joke to add some levity. All right, well, anyway. What else, Counselor? What else, Counselor? You have another question?
Yes, can you please explain, do you feel like you kept your word when you said that this wouldn't go forward if we didn't want it?
I think that I can address these issues. And let me just say this. These issues have been ongoing for quite a while. So it's not the issue of the security on the island has been going on before the pier was even described. The idea of the traffic has been going on before the pier was ever thought. In my opinion, the fishermen are going to come. They're coming now. They come in droves all the time. And they're going to keep coming, whether the pier's there or not. Okay, can I finish, please? Can I please finish? So they're going to come. And in many ways, what the pier does is allow you almost to manage it better, because they're going to be more focal. Okay. So we've taken incredible steps to enhance the security at the island. We can continue. You made a lot of good suggestions tonight. I will tell you, we looked, some of you may remember the big expose, because the authority at the time spent $1 million for that security shack, the security building. It was a big scandal, okay? We looked at bathrooms for there, but flushing toilets and the whole thing. It was over $1 million. Build all the different codes and the way to get the sewer line and all that. So we said we can't rationalize that to all our ratepayers $1 million. So we put in the comfort castles. We can put in more comfort castles. If we need to, if there are peak periods, we can put staff down there to monitor the pier if we need to. We can hire detail if we can do it. I think we can address those issues. But as I started to say, it's an incredible enhancement. It's over $1.5 million, almost $2 million investment from state funds to build a pier. And again, I know you heckled me a little bit, but when you go on vacation and you go to a spot, if they have a pier, what do you want to do? You want to take your grandkids out on the pier. If you have an elderly parent, you want to take them out on the pier so they can be over the water. You may want to wet a line. You may want to fly a kite. So my point is, there are very positive attributes to this thing. And I believe that most of the issues that all of the issues that we talked about here tonight, and I understand your frustration, we can deal with. And
We can take your word that you'll take care of these things, Fred?
Counselor, I've been respectful to you, and I just asked the same in return, okay?
Absolutely.
If you want to be a wise guy, go ahead.
All I ask is that you acknowledge that, we're asking a question here. Are you going to keep your word to us or not? What else do you want from us to show you that we don't want this pier?
Council, I'd like to ask a question. How many residents live in the town of Winthrop?
I'm not a census.
So saying that no one wants the pier is wrong. All you have here is people that are enraged. Some people do want the pier. Now, security is definitely the primary thing that should be looked at here, okay? But saying that people don't want the pier is wrong, okay? The pier encourages fishing, okay? John Hoffman runs the fishing academy. Today we took out over 100 kids in the city of Boston, okay, to get them involved in fishing. By getting them involved in fishing at a young age, it usually puts them on the right path in life, not towards gangs, not towards violence. Building fishing piers and access lets this become easier for us to do, okay? Security is a major thing that definitely has to be taken care of, but to say that you want to deny access to people for something that can be, for families to go out and enjoy fishing, for people to go out and enjoy fishing, okay, is wrong. Everyone here is...
And you're not a Winthrop resident.
No, I have a business in Winthrop. In my business, excuse me, I'll let you talk as soon as I'm done.
I understand that.
Okay? And I'm saying,
For our town meeting. So this is a town,
and
and if you want a peer meeting with the MWRA, you set it up with them about peer. But we fought
no,
these meetings in our MOU.
but what I'm trying to explain.
To our counselor,
But
we didn't have one.
excuse me, you can yell all you want, but why don't you talk in a nice manner when I'm done, okay? No, it's a public meeting. It's a public meeting, okay?
Hey, listen.
Our MOU. Well, I understand, but it's our meeting, he's not from our town, he shouldn't be saying anything. If he wants to talk about it here, set it up with
For the record...
Okay, I just want to let you know that we do take out kids. Excuse me, I'm talking now. Okay, I'm talking now. I take out kids from Winthrop. I know you don't care. I know you don't care. You also don't care that there's 18,000 residents in Winthrop. 18,000 residents in Winthrop, and you have 70 in the room, okay?
Hang on. Let me just say this. This is a hang on.
We don't have to. This is our resident meeting.
No.
And you moved it here on purpose. You put it in the paper. You included protesters. Shut up, Tom. You recruited protesters. We found it in the paper.
Listen.
All right, hold on. Time out. Everybody look up here and time out. There needs to be a little bit of decorum and civility in this meeting. You don't tell people to shut up. Go ahead and sit down. Stop, okay? Stop. You're out of control. Chief, do me a favor. Let's just bring this all in a little bit. Thank you so much. And I respect all your opinions. I respect it that you're giving input, and I hope they do take your concerns back and make additional security, and I hope that they do take the the marine fisheries regulations and post them right on the pier so people aren't taking short fish, so people aren't cutting up fish, okay? We can do that. We can take the regulations, we can laminate it, we can put it inside a plastic, screw it so no one can pull it out, and we can take care of that. The other thing I wanted to say is I've taken over 6,500 kids, all right? And I grew up in a neighborhood where drugs, gangs, violence was prevalent, and that was my escape, okay? If my brother didn't take me fishing when I was a kid, I would have went up the same path as all those other kids, okay? And so it is going to be a positive thing for your neighborhood. You just, if you... That's okay. Also, I've taken over 1,000 veterans out, okay? And a lot of the veterans have mobility issues. So being able to bring them over to a beautiful pier, okay? Wheel them out in a wheelchair, let them enjoy a day. They've served us in their country, okay? And so we should give back to them. Also, you residents can go out there, even if you don't fish, you don't like fishing, you can bring your mom there for a walk. You can go out and watch a beautiful sunset, okay? I understand you have issues. I understand you have issues, and I respect those issues, okay? I respect your issues. But all I'm hearing here is the crime, the gangs, the why not? The why not? Well, if you maybe try to address it, okay? Address some of the issues in a better tone, I think you'll get better place. Thank you.
This lady's got the microphone, and then we'll bring it over here, ma'am.
I just have two comments. I'm familiar with at least one employee from your security that you hire. Can you tell me, are they armed security? And also, what is their rate of pay?
They are not armed. They are paid the prevailing wage, I believe, whatever that may be, with health. I mean, you know, Dave, does anyone know? They make $17 an hour for the entry-level security guards.
Right, but I think it doesn't offer a lot of security. I mean, whether you're for armed security or not armed security, but I would find it difficult to believe that your security on site is going to take on serious issues, and I think they're just going to wait it out and call police if there are, you know, challenging issues, so.
No, that's right, ma'am.
But I'm saying, I think it's a false level of security that you're trying to offer the residents. I just have a follow-up.
Their role is to monitor the situation and, if need be, call the police. So you're right. They're not, you know, they may do some immediate things, but their goal is to maintain visual oversight, and if there's an issue, to call the police and tell the police what's going on and get the police out there. You're right. They don't have the power of arrest. They don't carry weapons. They are, you know, our eyes and ears, if you will.
Okay, and the second issue I'd like to bring up, I'm obviously a big open space advocate. Spent many years advocating, protecting, preserving, enhancing Belle Isle Marsh. I look at this piece of green space that you have, and you want to turn it somewhat into a parking lot. I find it difficult to believe that you're going to need 7,000 square feet for 20 cars. Right. And if you want to offer mitigation of sorts, I don't think taking a green space, which is part of an open space network for, you know, certainly our bird and wildlife critters, and it's also other wildlife obviously use this as habitat. So I think it's sad that, you know, you would compromise that kind of open space for parking. So I don't know, I understand what they...
I understand that, and that's one of the reasons that we've agreed that we're going to surround it with plantings and bushes to kind of mask it, perhaps get some native bushes in there, but we think that it's a small piece of property, small piece of land, and that it's worth the loss of that small amount. This lady up here has been waiting very patiently. Sean?
I'm only going to say a couple of things. This is our home. We have worked through floods, through everything, to get what we have and to keep it right. If you want to take all these people, have you ever been stopped when you're going to work and two people from the island say, stop, you're going the wrong way? Say, no, I'm going the right way down. I got held that night for 20 minutes until somebody came and got a policeman and got these people to move so I could go to work. You have no idea what it's like. We have one road, that's it. And the times that the people go flying by it, especially when children are getting on, It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. You want to have this? You want to have that? Then take these people on a boat from Boston and let them get in that way instead of constantly coming through our one road. I'm sick and tired of it for all the years. I've lived here since the day I was born. And believe me, I know what has happened. I've been there when it was the island was different than it was, when the prisoners were there and everything. Guess what? I'd rather have the prisoners than what I have now. We even visited them in Boston.
All right.
Fred, one more thing. It's obvious it's a done deal, you're going to put the pier there no matter what we say. But at least give us 3 shifts a day of security, walking around, not with cameras, that they can see. That's the minimum.
No, the message is loud and clear. We'll go back and regroup on the
Okay,
security.
because it has to be 3 shifts a day, not 1 in the afternoon and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that's a lot of work, a lot of money for you to have to pay.
Yeah, well,
But that's
that's
to
why
our
I don't
security.
want to make a promise
Yeah.
I can't keep, but we'll look at it. I mean, that's clear.
Okay.
That obviously the security side of this is we thought we had come a long way, and it's obviously we have to go farther.
Now, we've all talked about the pier, mostly security. I'm offended, and I think everybody else here is offended too, that the reason we don't want the pier is because of immigration, illegal immigrants. It was in the paper that that's what we don't want. That's not true. You embarrass all of us, whoever said that.
Okay.
And I got a copy of the paper I took with me, the Winthrop paper, where it was said.
Okay.
They put us down like that in front of the entire.
Okay. No, it's a fair point, sir.
I
It's
just
a
want to
fair point.
piggyback on him with security. I don't know where Chief Delahanty went,
I think he's right here.
and I don't know this man in green. Are you with the federal government? The state, I'm sorry. Don't be fresh. So my question is, if Deer Island is now I'm sorry, if Deer Island is now a state, is it state, a federal?
It's part
It's
of
a national park.
It's part of the national
So,
park.
if it's part of the
Harbor
national-
Islands National Park, and we manage it.
Okay, so if it's part of the national park, why aren't they supplying you with security down there? Why aren't they securing somebody down there, supplying somebody every day? In all due respect, Chief Delahanty, what do you have, 2 cars out each shift? So I'm just curious.
It would depend on the time of day. Between 10 and 2, we have about 5 cars out. After 2 to 7, we have 2. And during the day up until noontime, there's 2. We get a third one at noon to 10 o'clock at night.
So I'm just curious how we think our police officers are taking care of securing us in our town. That's my understanding. The gentleman from the state police on Revere Beach?
He's just outside talking to a couple of
I
residents.
think he said they have two officers?
That's correct.
So when you're going to regroup and talk about all of this, how are you going to find the manpower from Winthrop, the state police, when they have 2 each shift? Where are you going to get the manpower to make sure that you're getting security down there? All these people are saying they want somebody down there all the time.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, I'm not a fisherman. I cannot put somebody down there all the time.
I know you can't.
That's plain and simple. The state police cannot, and the environmental police cannot.
So I
We have
guess-
raised those issues with Mr. Lasky during our meeting.
So then why does it have to be open 24/7?
I didn't say it did have to be open 24/7. Mr. Lasky might have during his presentation, I didn't catch it, but I just said, let's see what we can restrict it to before we come out and say what it's going to be. Let's do the research and tell you what the law will allow us to do before we can say we can restrict the hours. That's all. That my point was earlier. I want to be able to do research and give you an honest answer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Back to the national park. It's a very unusual national park in that I think there are 4 or 5 entities that own pieces of it, and they manage it. So we own and manage Deer Island and Nut Island. DCR owns a couple of the islands. The city of Boston owns a couple of the islands. I think Quincy or Hull owns one of the islands. And so it's different than you think. It's not Yellowstone or something like that. It's a different setup. And so while it's part of the national park, we run it, and there's no federal funds to help us run it. But it's a good question. Sir?
Oh, I have
Oh, I'm sorry, was
That's
someone?
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'll be
okay.
right to you, 1 minute, sir.
I just want to go back to the old pier, the $27 million pier, and I know you had said it's part of the plant, part of the property. And I was asking if the 1.5 million from the fisheries could be used to upgrade that particular pier and then somehow make sure that you secure the walking path that actually is the buffer between the property and the tanks. That might be a more feasible and more palatable way to look at it. That way we wouldn't have to take any green space. It might be big enough to be able to put an office, to keep somebody secure there, a security guard there, maybe put a couple of flush toilets there, and the cars could park right there. I think $1 million, million and a half bucks would probably do a pretty nice job in upgrading it. And if it cost $27 million to build it 10, 15 years ago and it's fallen apart, it was a real waste of $27 million. It should be a
Well,
lifetime.
But I think it's important to realize, one, the plant cost $3.8 billion. So that's a small amount, and that pier was built because none of the construction materials was to come through Winthrop. It all came over from Quincy on those barges, so it wouldn't go through Winthrop. Back to this pier, there's two things. One is the pier goes out 250 feet that we're talking about with the marine fisheries folks. That industrial pier is basically right there. The other thing is, as you get farther out on the island, the currents come around, and it's a very strong current depending on the tide that comes through, and it really would, I don't know, there'd have to be a lot of engineering done to see if a pier like we're talking about here tonight would survive out there with those, it comes around and then it goes back out the other way. So I don't think it would work. I really don't. Yeah, we could look into it, but again, I think it's flawed for any number of reasons. It's a logical question to ask, but I think that it's flawed on many, many fronts. So, hang on, there was one other person who already had their hand. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, thank you.
I'll get back to you.
I'd like to address the two fishermen. I know it is against you fishing. No, it is against children or against fishing. We're glad that you take them out. They get fresh air. The issue that the residents are having is that there will be no one watching the pier at night. I'm sure you're not out there with children or veterans at night. I agree with you. I commend you for taking children and veterans out. It's a good thing. But everybody here, our main concern is the safety of our neighborhoods at night.
Oh.
No,
It's
thank you.
coming your
That
way.
was-
I promise you two
that was
guys,
good.
it's coming your way. Oh.
I can be patient. No, yeah, that's not happening.
$250,000 that you just spoke about into the state police budget, and to have a state police cop there 24 hours a day. Why couldn't you put the money into their budget that you want to put into your cameras to try to make it more secure down there? Because people would be more secure with a state cop there 24 hours a day.
I don't know that that's practical. I think over time, sir, it would be prohibitively expensive. Over time, maybe a year or two but it would go fast. It really would.
Well, listen, okay, all right, I knew you were gonna come back with that. So what about adding a little bit more money from the MWRA that you're already making from us? And put a little bit more money in there to cover the cost? Yes. You're talking about left and
Right.
right, you're talking about
Listen,
putting security cameras in. And people don't want security cameras, they wanna see a person, a guy with a radio, someone who has arresting powers, someone who can react to an
Right.
emergency. They don't
And I
want
think,
cameras.
again, I know that we have to take this even farther, but
That's the first step.
I think you'll find that this negotiation and the three-way agreement that appears to be in the making with the state police, the Winthrop police, and the environmental police will go a long way to getting a police presence down there. If we need more, we can look at it then. So,
Okay, I think, hey,
right.
Can the guy with the microphone speak?
Yeah.
All right. Forgive me, I've just been listening here. I've been in Winthrop for about 2 years now. I moved here from Chelmsford. It shouldn't be anything anyone really particularly cares about. There's a reason why I moved to Winthrop and not Chelsea or Revere. I walked into this community and it was exceptionally nice, clean, and peaceful. I'm just out of curiosity. I hope that this will increase the property values into the place, but when I look out my front lawn and I find a police officer picking heroin needles out of my next door neighbor's trash, and my other next door neighbor has a car going through it within a week, my guess is that it's not very good for things like property values. Will there be anything put in place for depreciation of property values that are there for people who might see the values of their home potentially drop over a period of time as it becomes maybe a much more publicly available area and people are less likely to want to move there, because it doesn't sound like people live there. Actually, it's decreasing for the people that want to live there, there's value. So are you going to do anything to compensate the value of the homes? Secondly, from what I've seen so far, you've been very polite. You've handled this very, very well. I wish that, people are passionate about this. So hopefully we can improve upon it and be nicer to you. But and it appears a little bit like stonewalling, it's going to be an eventuality where the levee breaks and people lose their cool, especially if what they're saying is correct and they were promised that if they don't want it, then it won't happen. There is that kind of sense that if that lie was already made once, then we've started a trend now, and that will continue to move that way. That said, in your support, I don't know where all the funding is for going on Winthrop Shore Avenue. It looks like a lot of improvements have been taken into this town. There's a lot of beautiful things. This is a very beautiful auditorium. I've seen a lot of change here. That's not free, so there's got to be something going on, on the side. So it sounds like there's a deal. It sounds like, something was made, that a lot of money is coming into Winthrop from somewhere, and if that's the case, if it's above you, if you're not the decision maker, because it doesn't sound like you have any say in the matter, can you just be honest about, where this come from? It's fine. It doesn't sound like there is any decision. It just sounds like this is the way it is, and that's it.
Okay. Well, back to your first question, no, I don't even know how you'd even start this in front the depreciation of the property. From what I understand, Winthrop property is red hot.
No, it is, but it doesn't sound like the people that live there in that point want to live there anymore, and I doubt other people would feel the same way.
Well, again, I think that it's a great place to live, and from what my sense is that it's a whole bunch of new folks moving in who
That don't know.
who have realized
They don't know yet, and because they don't know any different. I don't want to make Winthrop Chelsea again. Just.
Well,
But I'm finished. I'm all set. If anybody else would like to talk, I'll hand the microphone peacefully.
I think. Where are we going? Oh, there. But you were behind the camera. Sorry. What would a meeting be without you having a few words, huh?
Well, I would like to introduce everyone to my lovely wife, this is Cynthia. We live on Point Shirley. Cynthia likes to go running in a safe place after work, in the dark, in the winter. And the safest place in town to go running is not the streets with cars and people driving by and shouting out the windows, but Deer Island. Deer Island is a safe place to be. The fishermen are out there. They say hello. She says good luck. They say thank you. People have cell phones. It is a safe place. It is not a perilous place. And Cynthia is not afraid to run there, except for the only thing she's afraid of, actually, is the occasional skunk. But it's a safe place to be. It's the safest place in town to run.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your patience. Sure.
So for the fishermen here who got all upset, I hope you can tell that this is a bigger meeting than fishing. Like, because if I wanted to get into fishing, I would like to ask you to have your, friends stop littering everywhere. But this meeting is about more than just the fishing. No, I'm just trying to tell you that this is a meeting about, because this isn't just about the pier. Right, I'm just saying that you guys are a little tone deaf, and Fred, you are very tone deaf. I'm sorry. I don't know. So, just two things. If there's any more negotiations on the MOU or any more site meetings, Ron, you cannot exclude our precinct Counselor Nick LaConte. He should be at every meeting that goes forward about this issue because he represents your immediate abutters. And then otherwise, I don't know why you want to poke this bear because I hope you can see that we're all united now. And the $800,000 in pilot money that you give us, do you know that last year you had 66,000 car trips for just your general employees? That doesn't include all of the all-campus trainings that you do on site. That doesn't include the chemical trucks. That doesn't include the visitors to the park. So if you divide 66,000 times all those people into $800,000, what's it, like $1 a car? Our roads cannot handle any more wear and tear. So I'm sure you're defending yourself because this is your job, but you sound extremely tone-deaf and defensive, and now we are all very angry and feeling disrespected. Do not leave our counselor out of these discussions.
Okay. I don't see anyone else, so I just, oh, Dawn, go ahead.
This is nothing peer-related, so you guys won't get back. Okay. So, since it's a resident meeting, I wanted to go back a few years ago when we first met at a town hall, when we were discussing the slurry program.
Yes.
And we were talking about code
another pleasant evening.
digestion. And remember, you were having the eggs cleaned out. Did that ever go forward? Were the eggs ever cleaned out?
The digesters?
Yeah. No.
No.
Oh, because remember, you guys promised you were going to repave our roads after that. See, because before that meeting, we had met at the Winthrop Yacht Club with our former counselor, and there was engineering done, and you had talked about paving our roads. But then when we got together about the co-digestion, you said you were going to have the 5-year clean out and that you would pave our roads after that. Oh, don't start shaking your head doing this face, because we have all that. We were at, who else was at that meeting? The meeting down, it was like the first meeting we had. It was after, I'll have to pull it up on WCAT. But you guys were talking about the 5-year clean out that was going to take place with the co-digestion, so the eggs were going to be cleaned out, and you were going to pave our road afterwards because of all the trucks coming in. And then we stopped the slurry program. So the engineering, you did something about the engineering. We had our former counselor, again, that did nothing about it because he didn't care about the point. And again, nothing was done about our roads. So that was twice that our roads were promised to be paved down here. I know for a fact that an engineering study was done once. So, is there anything going to be done with our roads? Because it has come out of your mouths twice. I remember the first meeting at the Winthrop Yacht Club. I think his name was Michael McDurphy. It was an older gentleman. But that took place when we first became a council. So is there any planning going on? I believe it was going to be up to right around the High Tide Coffee Shop. But I can pull that WCAT meeting for you and send it to you if you'd like a refresher reminder about paving our road after the 5-year clean out, since you didn't go with that 5-year clean out once we stopped the slurry trucks.
Yeah, I don't, we have not cleaned out the digesters because we don't have to.
Right, because we stopped the program.
No, well, I don't know if those are connected.
No, actually, so the egg-shaped, one of the reasons why we chose egg-shaped digesters is because they're well mixed. They don't need to be cleaned out. So we've chose those egg-shaped digesters because of the shape, and that it enhances the natural mixing of those digesters, and it does not have to be taken down to be cleaned. We've actually taken them down every couple of years just to inspect them, but we've never actually had to clean them out.
So why were they going to?
The old treatment plant used to have a program where, because of the style of those digesters, which were pancake-style digesters, they're 300 feet wide and only 30 feet tall, those did require to be taken down every 5 years to clean out and inspect. So, but the egg shapes, we've never actually had to take them down to clean them.
So there was going to be 2 taken offline at a time when we were, when you guys were going to do the slurry program?
No, the plan was for co-digestion, which of course is not on the table anymore.
Correct.
Was that we were going to have, we have 12 egg-shaped digesters. Right now, we only have 8 in operation. Where we were going to start that co-digestion program, we were going to go up to 10 in operation, leaving 2 in reserve. So if we needed to take things down to do maintenance on other equipment, that we could rotate to the offline digesters. It wasn't to take them down to clean them.
Okay,
It
so
was
what
just to
was
take
that
them down to do maintenance
5-year
on it.
clean-out plan?
There was no 5-year cleanout. We never mentioned a 5-year cleanout.
All right, so I'm going to pull that meeting and send it to you guys.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate your attention and your patience and your passion. And please be careful going home. Thank you.